She saw him leave that morning, but he didn't come back that afternoon. He didn't show up that night. Nobody heard from him.
The teen's body was found in a rolled-up gym mat in a high school in 2013. His death ruled accidental.
Say my name and remember what you've done. Your hurricane has blackened out the sun. Play your game.
You can't continue to kill unarmed black people and get away with it.
But if Kendrick did die of an accident, how, with all that distrust, how could you even ever show that? But then on the flip side is they didn't treat it like it could have been a homicide.
Lowndes County Sheriff Ashley Paulk announced officials were reopening the investigation.
Only angle is to find justice for my son.
You can just tell death had come through our family, and it just settled.
As many of you are aware, I've been trying to get the police report for almost a year now. I have gotten pieces of it from sources and I've been able to stitch it together, but I was missing half of the police report. So I had been wanting to get this entire case document from Lowndes County since I started this. And unfortunately, 3 days into us starting it, they reopened that case.
Authorities have now reopened the investigation into a Georgia teenager found dead inside a rolled-up gym mat 8 years ago. 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson went missing on January 10th of 2013.
When cases are closed, a citizen usually has the right to get these case files and documents and actually look them over and decide for yourself if a case was handled correctly. But if a case is still open because of privacy reasons and the cops trying to make arrests, often they won't offer these case files when people fill out Freedom of Information documents. I had never been able to get all of the police reports. So when Sheriff Paulk closed the case again, I was excited only for the fact that I could get my hands on hopefully the entire case file.
Linda, Lowndes County Sheriff says case closed. He says the death of student Kendrick Johnson in the gym of the Lowndes County High School here 9 years ago was a tragic accident.
So I filled out a Freedom of Information document and I sent it to Lowndes County via certified mail requesting all of those things. The crime scene photos, the surveillance tape, the entire police report, and other evidentiary information that they had collected throughout their investigation. So I really couldn't wait to hopefully get my hands on that and find out if I was going to get all of those things. The thing about trying to get this information, however, is you have to be really patient. Basically, you send a letter or an email requesting the information, and sometimes if it's a simple request, they'll send back whatever you requested. Other times they require more information or questions, or sometimes it can be a little bit of a long process. So one of the things I've really learned to do is just be really patient, but to stay up on whether or not somebody has gotten the information I sent them and what the ETA is on me getting back the information I requested. So really, patience is a virtue when you're trying to get these types of documents. So for a while there, I was sitting in this perpetual waiting game, wondering if those things were going to come to me or not. In the meantime, however, one thing I had really been wanting to do is some experimenting with the gym mat that was similar to the one that KJ was found in, and really as close as we could get to that actual mat. So I kind of started down that road. One thing I'll be doing today is making quite a few calls to see if we can locate a mat and if we can go pick it up and then do some experiments with it, because I think this is going to be really important. The reason for that is with the mat, I think there's a lot of questions. Could you fall into the hole in the mat? How long would it take to roll the mat back up if you had to unroll it and put a body in it? How hard is it for one person to move that mat? Can you hear someone through the mat? And I know there has been other mat experiments done, and those are great. I love when people do stuff like that. There's just a little more details we need. So as far as I'm aware of, I've only seen one video that has captured an experiment done with a gym mat. And this really seems to be a popular video when people want to talk about if it was possible that Kendrick Johnson died in the mat or if it wasn't possible. So now we'll watch a few clips from that video and see what the video managed to prove or disprove about the Kendrick Johnson case. I have included the YouTube channel name here in case you want to check this out for yourself, and I'll also include the link to this video in the comments so you can watch the full video. It's about 6 minutes long.
We're gonna do a test. I believe his name was Kendrick Johnson, the KJ, and he was inside of a mat. A lot of people don't believe it. This is a very short mat. He was in an 8-foot mat.
So one thing quickly I just want to point out here is the mat that KJ was found rolled up in is actually 6 feet, not 8 feet. The gentleman in this video says the mat was 8 feet. I'm not sure why he did that. I'm sure it was just an innocent mistake, or maybe the mat he was experimenting on was 8 foot when Kendrick Johnson was only 6 foot. But even as I think about that, I don't think his experiment that had any bearing on it, whether or not he had rolled this kid in a 6-foot mat or an 8-foot mat. I think there's very similar results to that. So I don't think that was anything too strange. I just want to point out that the mat was only 6 feet tall that KJ was found in.
We're going to tip him up to demonstrate, and we want to show you guys how it's very difficult to get out of it. And if he was vertical in a mat, this is what would happen. Go ahead and let's tip him up. We're showing you right now. Go ahead and yell. Nobody can hear him. Try to get out. Try to knock it down. See, he can't. Now let's tip him over. Let's get him out. Crazy, huh?
It's so hot in there.
And can you imagine?
For how long? Like 15, 20 seconds?
Yeah.
In a few hours, blood will pool in your head. You won't be able to survive, and you'll die.
Although that shows that you could roll someone up in a mat, I don't think anyone was questioning if we could roll someone up in a mat. Obviously, you could roll someone up in a mat. I mean, they did prove that you couldn't hear the kid very well through the mat, but like, I don't know if that actually helped us with what might have happened to Kendrick Johnson. Can you slip into the mat from the top? Can you roll the mat up with a body in it in less than 6 minutes when the time that the cameras were off for? So I think this is a really important reason that we want the mat, because we need to do some of these experiments ourselves to see if it's even possible for you to slide into the mat. Because if it's not, well, we really then need to look at what nefarious thing happened to Kendrick Johnson. If you can slip into the mat and all the evidence continues to show that this possibly was an accident, that will lend some credence to the fact that it is at least possible, even if we still need to see additional details to confirm that that was an accident. So after really reviewing this video, I could tell right off the bat that some of these experiments needed to be expanded upon, and a whole new array of experiments needed to be done with this gym mat. At this point, I kind of knew there was no choice but to get a replica of the gym mat that KJ was found in. I really wanted to try some of these experiments in a controlled environment. And I just want to point out real quickly here that I'm not insinuating his experiments were bad or underrated by any stretch of the imagination, but it does look like he just quickly went into a gym to show that someone could be rolled up in the mat, that you wouldn't be able to hear them through the mat, and what that would be like for someone who was inside of that mat, if they could tip it over or not. All of those things were really great and things that we need to know, and of course we'll duplicate that in our experiments, but I think we need to take those experiments to the next level and do a lot more experiments than what he did. So at this point, I started contacting gym mat manufacturers. And boy, did I talk to a lot of people.
We're excited you called us today. Please listen carefully to the following options. If you have a pro account, press 3. To place a new order, please press 4. For help on an existing order,
please hold for the next available agent.
Help you place your order today?
Yes, I just kind of called you guys out of the blue. I'm looking for a really specific type of wrestling or cheerleading mat. And I didn't know if there was any way to find out if you guys sell that exact mat. I'm just trying to match a mat, and I need it to be the exact same kind. So I was just trying to figure out if you guys had it. I only have a picture of it, so I don't know how to give you more details.
What type of mat is it?
It's a mat that's used in school gyms. It rolls up. It's blue on one side, and it looks like it's yellow or white on the inside. It's probably about 1.5 inches thick, 2 inches thick. It looks like it's about 6 feet high.
We definitely have that.
Is there any way I can find where these specific mats are on your site so I can just look and confirm if it's possibly the same mat? I mean, it sounds like it, obviously, from what we just said, but I just want to make sure just so I don't waste your guys' time.
Absolutely. So if you look up Pure Mat, that's one of them.
So the only ones I see are not what the type of mat I'm looking for. So these all have every 6 inches, there's like a little divot in it. This mat isn't, it's totally smooth. Who knew there were so many mats?
Yeah, it's a lot of them, literally.
Right.
Especially when you go searching for them, it's like, oh.
Yeah, no, I was trying to find it online, and I was like, I'm just gonna call a place, because I was like, this is so hard. The equipment mat is probably the closest thing I've seen, although that looks really thin in comparison. Is there a way I can send someone a photo of this one or the one I have?
Are you on a cell phone?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to send you a text message, and then you can reply back to it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Okay, cool. I see that. Let me pull up the photo here and I'll send it right back to you. So one of the problems I started running into right off the bat when I tried to order the mat is everybody wanted to know, obviously, the width of the mat, because apparently those mats were made in different widths. And one width was 1 inch and 3/8, and the other width was 2 inches. And it's really hard to tell from the photos that you see online because most of those photos aren't raw, so it's really hard to expand in on them to really get a good idea of how thick that mat is. And to top it off, there was no measuring devices that were put right next to the mat so I could see how thick that mat was. So this was a problem I had to solve before I even ordered the mat. So the width of the mat is really instrumental in deciding how big the hole of the mat is, because if we know how big the width is, we can then use that as our measuring tool to find out how big the hole across the mat is. And the reason this is so important is because we need to know how big that hole is, because we need to understand if it's something that KJ could have slipped down into or if it wasn't possible. Because of course, if you roll someone up in a mat, you can roll them really nice and tight, so that hole might be a little bit smaller. But if someone slips into the mat, you have to have enough room for that person to slip all the way down. So the size of the hole in that mat was going to become extremely important to the experimentation that we were going to do. And I really felt like with the other mat video, they weren't really concerned with the hole in the mat. I could tell they hadn't really done that when they did their experiment. And that's something that was really important to this experiment. So one thing I wanted to do right off the bat before I ordered is figure out the width of the mat and the possible hole size of the mat so that I could order the mat correctly and not have to purchase a mat one time and then get the wrong one in and then have to repurchase a mat only because these mats were so freaking expensive and they take so long to process. So I thought one good experiment would be to go out and buy some pieces of foam and try to see what they would look like if I tried to mimic pictures from the crime scene, and to see if that would give me any insight into how wide the mat was and how big the hole was. I am headed to Michael's and Home Depot possibly. I'm going to try to pick up some different varieties of foam so we can kind of take a look at it. Wish me luck. I went into Lowe's and they did not have any flexible foam. So Michael's is right next door here, so we're gonna give that a shot. Just leaving Michael's, it does appear we were able to locate 2 pieces of foam, each are an inch thick. Obviously, this is a very rudimentary experiment, but it's a start. Hopefully, we can take a look at this when we get back, do some measurements compared to the photos, and see if we can hypothesize to the best of our ability how wide that mat is, and then purchase the one that is that width and see if we can get a better idea of if it was possible for Kendrick Johnson to have slipped inside of it. So what was so wild is when I got home from Michael's with the foam I had purchased, I was so excited because I checked the mail and there happened to be a letter about my Freedom of Information document I had sent to Lowndes County. So I quickly opened that letter and found that they said I could have all the materials I requested and all I needed to do was send them a hard drive. So I immediately packaged up a hard drive, went to the post office and sent it certified mail so that I would know when it got back to them in case I needed to bump them on if they've gotten the drive and why it wasn't being processed in the time it should have been processed in. So I quickly did all that and shipped that out before I got back to my experiments. But I was very excited to know that there was a really good possibility that I was going to get all the requests I had made. But in any case, I don't really get excited about anything until I can see it with my own eyes, because I'm often promised material that never makes it to me. So I was hopeful, but cautious at the same time. I've got the two pieces of foam here. First, we're just going to start by looking at them and kind of look at what that might look compared to Kendrick's foam. So these are each 1 inch thick. We can see here 1 inch. My hypothesis says Kendrick Johnson's mat was 2 inches, but I think they also make those in the 1 3/8 inch size. So what I kind of want to do here is put these two mats together and think about if that could be the width. This is so hard because the 1 3/8 and 2 inches, that's almost like 1.5 inches compared to 2 inches. So we're not talking about a significant difference. So it's really hard right now for me to tell. I think one thing we're gonna do next, I'm gonna paint one of the sides blue, and then I'm gonna roll up the mat. I'm gonna keep these two together, and we're gonna roll it up and kind of see if we believe that it's 2 inches or 1 3/8 inches. I mean, we're gonna get to the bottom of this 100%. All right, I've got the mat here, and I'm just gonna spray paint it blue. So one of the sides is indicative of maybe how it looked in the gym. So now I have a few items here. I have the foam that we spray painted blue. I have my trusty helper. I have some rope and some measuring tape. And then also I have some scissors, which I believe are under here. So Clark, come on. Oh, hi babies, hi. And some scissors. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to make the hole in this mat 14 3/4 inches. So now we'll try this width here. Okay, so 16 inches, we still have a lot more to go. I feel like we need to do even more. I feel like I'm not even getting close. So let's really tie in here and we'll see what we've got. And I'll show my results here to everyone too, but at least that'll give us. All right, so it's a little closer to 14, probably went a little too small. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so this seems close to 14 3/4. So we're gonna tie this off and kind of get a feel for it. And I'll show the measurements here in a minute too, once I get it tied up, just so we make sure we're doing this pretty accurately. And this, again, we'll do this test with the real mat, but I just wanna get a feel for how big that hole looks, and if we feel like it's even possible, so we can hypothesize what the chances are if he actually slid in trying to grab his shoe, to see how likely that would be at 14 inches. Now we're going to just show the camera here the measurements. Here we have about 14 inches, if you can see that, 14 right here. And then if you're going this way, we're looking closer to like 15 inches, if you can see that here, 15. Oof. I realize this is just so early on, but I get the willies, and this is only maybe 2.5 feet tall. I can't imagine thinking you could. I can't imagine thinking you'd get claustrophobic. And I don't know, I mean, we need to do this with a person who is male and has 16-inch shoulders, but I just want to see how wide mine are. Yeah, now I have 19-inch shoulders, so Kendrick had 16-inch.
You can see it starts here and goes across, and that is 16 inches. Well, that's bigger than the hole.
Yeah.
So there's essentially no way he's going to get into that gym mat through that hole.
So 16 would put him about here. Mine go to 19, which puts me more to here. You know, maybe if you're a little tinier, but that 14 to 15 inches. Almost anything you read says the hole was 14 3/4 inches. The only time I didn't see that was on a report Sheriff Paulk put out that said the hole was 1 to 2 feet. Because no one seems to trust what's going on with Lowndes County, I feel like we need to actually figure out how big this hole it is. I think one of the other things we could do here is take a photo and just kind of see what that looks like and how that compares to Kendrick in there, and just kind of look at the hole and how big that would be. I'm also going to take this camera and just show everybody what this looks like looking down it. I just want everyone to kind of get a feel for this so you kind of see for yourself. It's just There's not a lot of room. And I mean, going more, that hole is not very big. Now that's if it's 14 to 15 inch hole. We found one side's 14, one side's 15. I mean, just think about that for a moment. I know this is a really hard way to kind of examine this as a test, but these are experimenting to then get to the actual experiment itself. So some of these little things will help me actually get the right equipment and stuff we need in to make sure we're doing the experiment with the utmost credibility. When I looked at the hole just visually, it made me feel like it was probably 14 3/4 inches. Now I want to take this photo of the feet in it to just see if that gives me any better idea of what might have been realistic here. So first thing I'm gonna do is gonna kind of just clean up this area, and then we'll set the mats down with the feet in it. I'll take some pictures and we'll compare those photos. So now I'm gonna put the feet inside and I'm gonna take a picture. And I just wanted to show you that hole. Legs are in. Cover it up just so get a real feel for that. The first thing I want to do is match the two mats up, and the reason I want to do this is to see if we feel like the hole is of an accurate size, and then we'll check the feet size to just kind of see if Kendrick's foot matches the size of this foot, just to make sure we have the hole in this mat set correctly. So the first thing we just want to see is look at the mat itself, this outward angle here, and see if it matches up with the picture of Kendrick Johnson. Now, see how this part comes up on the side? I've rotated the Kendrick Johnson image so that part on his crime scene photo also comes up to this side, just so that we can see if this hole seems equal. So here we go. So I turn that, you see this part's going up. So now we're going to put this over the top of the shot that we took here in the studio. And now I'm gonna lower the opacity so we can kind of see how close these two are. And as you can see, the hole is almost identical. I'm just gonna move this back and forth a little so you can see. You can see where Kendrick's is and where that is. So the hole seems very equal, which is amazing. Now I think we're pretty secure with the fact that this hole here is about 14 to 15 inches, kind of depending on what direction you're coming from. So now we're gonna rotate these feet to this foot to also see if that is something that lines up. Okay, so we're gonna roll it around and we're gonna move it right above the mat. Wow, so look at that. That foot is almost the exact same as our mannequin's foot. So I'm just gonna bring up the opacity. You see Kendrick Johnson's foot there, and then there you see our mannequin's foot. But if you look, they're almost the exact same size in there. So I think this really helps us know that this mat is 14 to 15 inches across, and now we know that the width of the mat that Kendrick Johnson is in is probably 1 3/8 inches. After doing this experiment and taking these pictures, I am definitely thinking that the mat width, this part, is 1 3/8 1/4 inch and not 2 inches as I hypothesized. And the reason for this is from the initial photos, it does appear that this seems to look more like the pictures. And when I say this, I'm talking about the hole itself. I realize this mat here has a 2-inch width because we have two 1-inch mats pushed together here, so that's 2 inches. But this hole looks much more like the size of the hole that was taken in the photos from the crime scene. So we need to confirm all this. I am getting the surveillance tape and the actual photos from the crime scene. I think that will help give us higher resolution to make sure that this is accurate. I think that that's really important because we need to know how big this hole is, because we need to know when we do the experiment of someone actually going in there that the hole is the right size, because that's going to be really indicative if he was rolled up, because right, you could roll somebody up and really get that tight around them, or if he slipped in, can you even slip in if you have 16-inch shoulders? So this will be interesting. So I just got news from FedEx that the package with the surveillance tape has arrived, so we're going to go see if it's downstairs. All right, here we are. We're at the door, so let's see. All right, let's see if it's out there. Oh, that looks like a FedEx package to me. Ah, yes, that is it. All right, here we go. Let's take a look. So here's the package. We're gonna cut it open and see if we finally got the surveillance tape. So in total, I'm supposed to get a CD-ROM, a thumb drive, and my hard drive, which I had sent them to put the surveillance tape on. So let's see if it all came. Okay, so CD-ROM it looks like, thumb drive, and my hard drive. All right, now let's take a look at what's on there.
Say my name and remember what you've done. Your hurricane has blackened out the sun. Play your game in a tangled web you spun. Send your rain